with Lillian Lynn, Tony White, with musician Richard Norris. I'd like to introduce to you Catherine Gray, co-founder of October Gallery, and the one who introduced William Burroughs and Brian Geisen to us early in the 80s. We held Burroughs' first exhibition in the UK in 1988. Catherine has organized a series of readings, discussions, seminars, and performances during the show, and she will speak more about that.
I arrived in the UK last night. I would not miss this event for the world. My dear friends, Tony and Lillian, who are two of the great forces in the artistic community in London and internationally. Tony as an author, and Lillian, kinetic artist, light artist, author, performance. And this launches the series, as Chili said, of events which are focusing on, as the show does, on the impact of the ideas of William S. Burroughs and Brian Geisen, the whole school of cut-ups, which actually originated before them, but they really developed it, and how those ideas really became a part of the fabric of British art, writing, painting, movies, sound art, etc. And so we launched the series of events now, and then on Friday there's a performance by Genesis Breyer P. Orridge on Friday night, who I met in London via Brian Geisen in the year we got the building for the gallery, 1978. And there have been parallel careers and manifestations, although quite different, between those activities that Chile and those in the gallery and associated projects have been involved in, and Psychic TV, Fabian Grisel, and his Pandagian project. And on Saturday, there's an artist discussion between Jen and I, and we will discuss those themes. And then the following weekend, on the 31st, also at 3 p.m. on Saturday, we'll have a seminar chaired by Dan Glazer, who is a neuroscientist who used to be at Institute for Cognitive Neuroscience here, then at Wellcome Trust. Now he runs the Science Gallery at King's College, which is a brand new facility. And he'll be chairing our event, which includes themes that William Burroughs was passionate about, such as paleovirology, the future of reproductive biology, humans in space, and many other themes, general semantics, the neuroscience of subliminal suggestion. So that will be a really stimulating salon environment on Saturday the 31st. And then Barry Miles, who just wrote the definitive authorized biography of Burroughs, will be talking about the cut-ups as a revolutionary tool and the implication in the artistic fabric in the UK and beyond. His foil will be Stuart Home, the amazing performance artist and writer, and they'll be joined by artist Shazad Dawood, who's also in the exhibition downstairs. Please enjoy Lillian and Tony.
Well, I'm going to start with the appropriate title. I'm going to read from my book, Crossing Map. And I'm reading the first song, The Beginning. With the organization. The body swells to for another life. Membranes and mucus take over, oozing as they open out, secreting juices for reasons of their own, unconnected to the one I thought I was. I remain a receiver. I try to keep my mind clear. I think my thoughts, I observe, I function, and all the while the body continues to become another. At times, often at night when I find it hard to sleep, I slide into it, into a mound of slowly fermenting dung, into the heat and the opulence of matter. And the flesh and the juices, the creeping, slow-moving, gelatinous parts, and the sow of short legs and protruding udders. We will use your milk and your fat and your meat, and earth, the soil, the clay. We will walk on you, you exist beneath our feet. At best we will mold you or reap you. We will make of you what we will. And stone. We will make tools to cut you, to chisel and form you into implements that we can use. We will throw you down and smash you against other stones. We will look to see what lies inside you, just in case we might be able to use it or in case it pleases us. If we find nothing of interest, we will leave you lying where we threw you, fragmented, scattered, prey to the elements. I've become everything, but there is nothing upon which they do not trample. I know I must become them. It had decided to come out, or the body said, leave. The pain was terrible, but mine made no contact with muscle. Separate the nerves, the muscle, and the brain. They gave drugs and sleep, but the pain woke halfway and I was not in control. The pain comes increasing in frequency. Mind sleeping, body shattered. Hands went to the rescue, but were clamped down flat with leather. Legs up in the air, clamped to steal the mask, shoved over mouth and nose. The gas to blow me to darkness. To know that all the things you are not you. Me. Strip off all that you think is you, and you will find. What? You. What? Me. What? Nothing in unlimited disguise. Nothing in the form of everything. Not surprising that I became the beach I lay on, absorbing all the other laughing people into me, all into me. And not surprising when he asked me who I was. I didn't know and wasn't sure. When I said my name, I faltered, and he caught the uncertainty, the slight vibration and sound, which was out of key, out of step. He caught it like a stone in the air and used it to crush me. Knowing that I was everything, I had to forget and become him. He used it all. He despised it. He ate it, digested it, and spat it out. If I was matter, he consumed it. Had cut himself off and said he wasn't. He was man, he said, he thought, he hoped. Man, not matter. Man was mind. Naturally, that manners matter too, but that was something the mind strove to control. And the toughest were the tightest. They squeezed it denser than a heavy star, absorbing all, emitting nothing, oscillation setting in. To become them, I had to stop seeing. Shut your eyes, he said. To become them, I had to plug my ears or deafen them with heavy input. I had to keep my mouth fixed in an immutable line and kill the desire of my flesh for theirs. To become them, I had to train my thoughts to move in single file, orderly, synchronous, and towards a definite point ahead. I was incapable of standing, hands at my sides, toes pointed, eyes fixed ahead unseeing. Discipline was a word I refused as long as it attempted to separate me from everything I might and could be, from what I was, what it was, from the beginning and the end. I remembered that I was star and gas and the great flowing current. I remembered that I was nothing in between something and the infinite something surrounded by nothing. I will not be separated. I will not become you. I am light. The day came when I said it for all to hear. He laughed and mocked and answered me, I will show you light. I will burn your body and of you make light. And I thought to myself, if he was intelligent, if he was shrewd, if he knew what I meant, if he understood, he would use me to see, at least for a start, and then to hear. Then he would come to me and he would say, let me be light too. Let me join and become one with you. But I forgot that he had long lost the use of his eyes, had forgotten how to see, to project his sight outwards, through and beyond. His sight lingered on the surface of things, like it took in reflections, sat there inside his eyes, and waited for them to come calling like a lady forever receiving guests and never returning their call. I mean, his sight sat there and never went out, sat waiting like the trapdoor spider to suck something in. Absorption, taking it in, receive the opposite of give, selfish, greedy, in. So although I said I was blind, he didn't see me. He saw the light that reflected off my skin, my hair, my membranes, my clothes, reflections of structures, games of games. He heard the air vibrating through my throat, since I had never learned the ancient technique of sending sound through my whole body. But even so, I was lucky, since there are some who only vibrate with their tongues, using their vocal cords as mere tuners, and others seem to count mainly on the teeth, but I was sending it out through the throat. He felt the light from my skin, in smooth infrared, the excess I gave out as I could with a minimum of training, because naturally I'd been trained to use my throat, my vocal cords to be precise, and my tongue and lips to modulate and form the waves. I mean, I was taught to modulate the flow inside me. And this particular instance, it was the air I twanged, making it move and dance, jolting all the little ones, the particles, as they are called, I think, and forcing them all to pass a little on to each other to emit. But I learned to twang it just so and not another way. Any way, for instance, but a specific way. And even a specific tone. In fact, that was learned first and fast. A way that would lead to satisfaction. Like receiving food. Like input. I learned quick to absorb, to eat energy. And my instruction on emission was directly linked to its success in absorption. Like, were the results good? Like, how much do I get back on my investment? Like maybe all I said was, I am light. And I took in and I gave out and it came and it went. Naturally without too much trouble, perhaps initially with no trouble at all, but very soon there were restrictions one way or the other because it had to flow from everything. It could not come from the other to me, or when it went to the other, not be received, coming back at me quick and unexpected and blocking, closing, clogging my outlets. That was painful, but I adjusted and the others helped. They taught me to absorb and just how to emit enough to absorb more, to modulate emission for a full return. Emission was made the tool of absorption, cultivated into dependence and service. The first step to control on the path to order, the inorganic freeway. Greed, fear, where did they arise? When the structure said, I like myself and refuse to disintegrate or even shift. I want to stay put, I want to be me. Me? Who's that? What? Echo. Caught in a mirror world, in a soundtrack, a prey to reflection, ceaseless sadness. Keep bouncing on, and there's no let up, no way to get to nothing.
With each. Yeah. Okay. Okay. With each new atrocity. We okay? Yeah. Okay. With each new atrocity, each revelation of industrial scale corruption, each death in custody, followed by the inevitable acquittal, I think, wow, someone really should write a novel about an alienated police force locked into a cycle of violence and prurient self-justification. And then I remember, oh yeah, I already did. I'm going to read the first chapter from Charlie Uncle Norfolk Tango, a novel of mine from 1999, which is not in any shops now, it's out of print. And it's all cunts in bright lights, isn't it? And driving through this sodding city, and driving real fast whether we're on a fucking call out or not. And we're great fucking blokes and all, ain't we, eh? Us, free. That's me, the sergeant, old Blakey. Best fucking mates and all that shit. And we do have a right old fucking laugh some of the fucking time, believe you me, just cruising around in this fucking van. And that's all we fucking do all day long. All fucking night and all. Just drive around looking for fucking trouble, you might say. And most of the sodding time we find it and all. And if we don't find it, that trouble will cunting well find us most probably. Or some poor bastard will phone 99 sodding 9, won't they? And go like, please help me, there's trouble coming down my bastard in street, send the fucking boys round to help me, won't you? And then our radio will go like,
Charlie Uncle Norfolk Tango, Charlie Uncle Norfolk Tango, this is Delta, India, Charlie, Kebab, come in please.
over. And old Blakey will be like, Roger Rog, Delta, what's up mate? And our radio will be like, Roger Rog, Charlie Uncle, some poor bastard, just give us a call. There's trouble coming down his street and he's right crapping himself. Go and sort that cunt out for us, lads. And old Blakey will be like, Roger Rog, mate, on our fucking way, over and out. And he'll switch on our cunting siren, won't he? And our fucking flashing lights, and he'll be like, put your fucking foot down, Sergeant, let's go, mate. So one way or another, we find a bit of trouble most nights, don't we? Worse fucking luck. But still, that's what being a copper is all a fucking about, I suppose. If we wasn't out there looking for trouble and sorting it out, then all that trouble might just come looking for you, mightn't it? All that fucking trouble would come tapping on your fucking window most nights, wouldn't it, eh? So that's why there's got to be fucking coppers in this sodding world, isn't it? Because if there wasn't, you'd soon fucking know about it, wouldn't you, mate? When trouble come tapping on your fucking window and shaking your fucking doorknobs and shit, and you're shaking in your fucking bed and you're totally fucking crapping yourself, ain't you, mate? Because let's face it, most blokes and birds don't like trouble, do they? No, they fucking well don't. And why the bastard in fuck should they, eh? Most blokes and birds don't want no fucking trouble to come tapping on their fucking windows when they're trying to have a cunting shag or a wank or a kip or something. So that's where we come in, isn't it? Me and old Blakey and the Sarge. And that's why we get this fucking van to drive around this sodding city and have a bit of a fucking laugh in and all. Because we're looking for fucking trouble, ain't we? And when we find a bit of trouble, we fucking deal with it, don't we? We stop that trouble from coming around to your place. But, bastard in hell though, I mean, there's only cunting 3 of us, for fuck's sake. We can't catch every sodding bit of trouble. We can't catch all the fucking crims, can we, eh? Because that'd be fucking possible, wouldn't it? So there's always going to be some poor bastard what wakes up and finds some kind of killer in his or her bedroom, and then poor cunts just have to sit there and shit themselves with fright, don't they? And they'll be sitting in the middle of their fucking beds with their cunting duvets around them and shit and shaking, and they'll be like, oh no, please don't kill me, mate, there's a bit of cash in the fucking kitchen drawer, mate, you can have it, I mean, please don't kill me, please, I suppose I won't call the fucking coppers or nothing. But that fucking killer don't give a fucking shit, does he, eh? And it don't matter if you ain't got fuck all for him to nick, does it? If anything, that's even worse, ain't it? Because he'll have the right fucking ump with you. Since he went to all the sodding trouble of getting into your fucking place, only to find out you ain't got fuck all, he won't be an happy man. For a start, he's probably found that couple of quid in the kitchen drawer already and ain't enough. So he's got to nick a load of other stuff and all to make it worth his while. And probably by the time he finds out you ain't got fuck all, he's going to be in a right bad fucking mood, ain't he? And that's probably when he realises that he ain't alone in the house. And that's when he decides to creep up your fucking stairs and shake on your fucking doorknob. And he's probably got all kind of guns and knives and shit. And he can kill you in about 50 fucking different ways without even thinking about it. So for all your pleading and begging, and the fact that you're totally crapping yourself, you're probably going to die anyway, ain't you? And there's probably fuck all you can bastard and well do about it by that fucking time. Because that mad fucking killer ain't just going to stand there staring while you phone the fucking coppers and go like, help, there's this fucking mad killer in my fucking bedroom, mate. I think he's got a gun or a knife or something. Please, can you send some of your boys round right away, mate? That just ain't going to fucking happen, is it, eh? As soon as you so much as look at your fucking phone, that mad fucking killer will have chopped your head off, or stabbed you in the arm, or made you suck his dick while he slices off your ears, or drawn a target on your chest with lipstick and chucked his knife at you, or pissed on you and then blown your fucking legs off, or carved his name in your skin while he fucks you, or mutilated you, or given you a 1 second head start, or just stabbed you 100 sodding times, or chopped you up and eaten you a slice of bread, or chopped off your balls and made you eat the fuckers, or disin-fucking-bowed you, or made you, or bashed your head in with an hammer or a spade or a sodding plank or a vase or something, or poked your sodding eyes out and wanked over you, or made you eat your shit, or stabbed you while he fucks you, or shot you while he fucks you, or suffocated you with your own sodding pillar while he fucks you, or just suffocated you with a plastic fucking bag, or chopped you up and fed you to your own fucking pets, or chopped you up and then put all the bits in the jiffy bags and posted it to your friends, or read his fucking manifesto on your wall with your blood, or broken your fucking neck, or broken your fucking arms and legs and strangled you, or poisoned you with some fucking stuff out of your kitchen cupboard, or just fucking scared you to death, or drowned you in the bath, or drowned you in the bog, or buried you fucking alive, or locked you in the wardrobe, or tied you up and let you starve to death, or tied you up and tortured you for a fuck of a long time, or done a snuff video of you being fucked and killed, using your own fucking camcorder, or tied you up and done experiments on you, or tied you up and then set you on bastard in fire, or blown your fucking brains out, shot you in the chest, the guts, throat, balls, cunt, back, arse, legs, gob, shot you right between your fucking eyes, or just slashed you to death with his fucking great knife and watched you bleed to death, or cut your sodding balls off and watched you bleed to death, or done surgery on you with no anaesthetic, using old tools out of your own fucking broom cupboard. And there ain't going to be fuck all that you could sodding well do about it, mate. So that's why there's got to be coppers in this world, isn't it? That's why there's got to be coppers like me and old Blakey and the Sarge. And that's why we just cruise around in this fucking city with all its bright lights and all its dark places in this here van and just look for trouble. Because perhaps we'll find that mad fucking killer before he gets to your place. Perhaps we'll find that cunt before he comes tapping on your fucking windows with all his knives and guns and shit. That's the fucking plan anyway. So listen, all of you bastards out there, all of you blokes and birds, can sleep easy in your fucking beds, can't you, eh? And hopefully, if that mad killer comes walking down your fucking street, us three will catch him, won't we? And then he won't come round to your place, tapping on your sodding windows. And he won't come shaking on your fucking doorknob. And he won't nick that couple of quid out of your fucking kitchen drawer. And he won't creep into your room and torture you. And he won't creep into your fucking room and bastarding well kill you. Because us three will catch the fucker, won't we? And we'll kick 7 sodding shades of fucking shit out of that cunt. Soon as look at him, won't we, eh? We'll have him in the back of the sodding van before you can say, Metropolitan Police Force at your fucking service, you cunt. And we'll just put the fucking boot in on your behalf. And we'll teach that cunt a lesson on your behalf. And we'll do the cunt for whatever the fuck we can on your behalf. That'll teach the cunt not to come creeping around at your place. That'll teach the cunt not to come creeping down your fucking street. Won't do that again in a fucking hurry, will you, eh? Not with us around to teach him some fucking manners. So basically, like I say, that's why you've got to have coppers around. So don't you worry about nothing, alright? Because we're here, ain't we? Us three. Me and old Blakey and the Sarge. We'll fucking well look after all of you lot, won't we, eh? It's our job, ain't it? So, Lillian, here we are. Lillian and I have known each other for about a decade, I guess, and we've collaborated in the past, and I've published a little book of Lillian's. And I thought it'd be interesting to just start off just by hearing a little bit about what that piece was that you read from at the beginning, because it's something you're going to come back to.
Right. Well, Crossing Map is a book that was published in 1983. It took a long time to publish it. I actually began writing it in 1968, and it started with a dream. So I dreamt something, and as Jung talks about active imagination, in fact, I had an extraordinary dream, actually. I dreamt that light came out of my mouth. You know, and I was speaking with light. I didn't actually speak with words, but I spoke with light. And then I felt really as if I could move without actually moving. And so when I woke up, I just continued the dream. The dream was so good I didn't want to stop it, so I continued writing. And then I figured out what kind of world would that be in which you could do that. And at the same time, I had read Richard Feynman. I should preface this by saying I've been interested in physics since the early 60s. Physics and astronomy, basically reality, trying to understand what reality is. And so I've been reading quite a bit of general physics, and Richard Feynman, who's very clear in the way he writes, was one of the people I liked reading. And one of the things he spoke about was particles that had been observed going backwards in time, and that when they came back into the present, they had more energy. And so I took that almost as a premise, and I thought, well, what would happen if you went back in time? And how can I go back in time? The only way I know of going back in time is through my own memory, going back in my time. And then what if you could actually use all the moments of your time basically as moments of energy, all the energy that you had at different moments of your time, and keep that energy now. Just add it all up, add it right now. What would happen to you? What kind of energy, what kind of power would you achieve? And this was basically the beginning of this book. And it was a book that I originally wanted to explore with scientists, as Tony and I then attempted to do many years later. But there were no scientists who would actually work with me at the time because they thought my ideas were too far-fetched. And I mean, basically the idea of looking at human behavior in terms of particle behavior, for example. And now, of course, it's different. There are a lot of people, a lot of scientists have actually responded to my questions. How many years later?
40 years.
A long time. And so that's basically across the map. But the other thing I should say, because I'm going to be reading from it, is that it took, I started in 68, finished in 74, and was only published in 83. But when I started, the book was science fiction, and the genre was science fiction. And because and it was called The Time Zone. And because I worked on it over and over, and I had many multiple drafts, it changed over time. And instead of being prose, it became a sort of epic prose poem. And
I say, I call it an epic feminist prose poem when we speak about it, don't I?
I think that was because basically I started off trying to write other characters, but because I'm not a writer, because because I'm pulled between writing and the visual arts, and that most of my time is actually occupied in the visual arts in various ways. I think because of that, I ended up using myself, because that was, in a way, much easier, much more real to me.
I think science fiction maybe is a little kind of hook we can use here. I'm glad that came up, because I mean, thinking about the context in which we're speaking,
Exactly.
in the mid-60s, it was science fiction community. It was New Worlds magazine, with Michael Moorcock, the first review, Naked Lunch, yeah, exactly. And Charlie Uncle Norfolk Tango was written kind of as a science fiction novel as well at the time. I mean, it came out of a moment when, sort of just pre the Macpherson report in the mid-90s, when the police were behaving particularly badly, something they haven't stopped doing since then. But wanting to write about this kind of paranoid agency. The obvious kind of narrative structure to use for that was to take a sort of off the peg Philip K. Dick story, about difference within a small group, the second varieties, the classic paranoid narrative. And so Charlie Uncle Norfolk Tango was built around that kind of structure, but using the kind of prurience of that opening chapter, this kind of sex obsession, was lifted straight from Burroughs, but put into a contemporary British context, yeah.
And perhaps a different language. I think language is so specific to your work.
Yeah.
Perhaps also to mine. It became very important to mine as well. And I think language has always been very important to me.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that's the striking thing about your work, Foxy Tea.
and
Those two books, which
yeah.
are my preferred favorites, I have to say. And probably because of that extraordinary language that you've been able to continue, the breadth of it.
With Charlie Uncle Norfolk Tango, it was, it carried, the whole novel just carries on in that voice. And it was commissioned actually initially as a short story. Stuart Home, funny enough, who's speaking next week, called me about 95, maybe this is early 96, said, fancy writing a short story for something or other. And actually, once I had that voice, this, you know, this insane lunatic kind of policeman just wouldn't show up. You know, so just that little short story just turned into a novel. But it was looking for a way to write a kind of machinery. I don't know if people want to have a look. It's written phonetically. I mean, if people want to have a look, I haven't seen it. It's quite hard to get hold of, I guess, at the moment, so maybe people haven't seen it. It was like trying to emulate a machine-readable, very reduced, white working class voice from as few words as possible and as repetitively as possible. At the time when I wrote it, I was working nights at the post office. Actually, I wrote most of the novel doing the night shift when I should have been sorting letters. I'm sorry, you know, I lived in N1 in the mid-90s. The letters were late. But it was very much about the voice, using the voice, and it had to be written longhand because I couldn't unlearn typing, you know. And but happily, the speed, the very kind of dull speed of the intelligence of this narrator was about the same speed as I could write longhand. So the voice and the language kind of found each other in a sort of written script. Whereas Foxy T was an attempt to. Foxy T was a novel that came out in 2003, which was an attempt to kind of use fiction to map the sort of ephemeral economies of a street in Whitechapel, Penn Street Road, and it was what was happening in language, with the emergence of what's now called multicultural London English. That I wanted to kind of capture in Foxy T's. I mean, just the first.
It takes you quite a while to actually get into the
It's only 20 pages, I think, yeah. But this is so the opening, the first sentence. They got proper names then to in it, but everyone still called them by their tags, or everywhere on all them like stairwell and flats and playground around here, at least where they haven't been washed off yet, or paint over. And they are Rudy Babes and Foxy T. Different language, but again, it was the voice that kind of sustains the whole novel.
Coming back to perhaps William Burroughs
Yes.
and the cut-ups.
Yes, yeah.
I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about
I think we should. I mean, it's great that I hope people are coming to Barry's thing in a few days. But you used cut-ups to write a statement about your work in 1964, which was published in Signals magazine. It's very short. I think it would be great to hear that as a sort of springboard into.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
It's short, isn't
it was actually the thing about it is the first statement I ever wrote about my work.
Okay.
So it was asked by Signals by I think David Nadal asked me to write, and I didn't know quite what to write about my work at the time. So I decided to cut up I wrote a sort of phrase about my work and then cut it up with a passage in a book of physics. It's called Electron Notes. I want to walk through the transparent world of photon light, work with the source of light, capture electron images. My echo lights are silent spherical reflections, photoplanets echoing themselves. Why do you make echo time? I want to walk through the stimulated emission of radiation, work with the invisible beams. My echo lights are silent rays split in vibration. They make atomic structures into pure radiation. Why do you make echo lights move? Can they exist in a static state? Do you use color? Ruby crystals generate very pure beams of infrared light. No pigments wanted. Color must be the ray split. Plexiglass, possible matter for electron transformations. Planetary reflections become real. Movement intrinsic with light. Speed so great as to appear static. The photon vibrates in the formula I have injected, introducing an electron and a positron, which act like lenses, charged mathematical equations, medium planets, even without moving pulse paintings, and I can make reflections which vibrate. But I'm intrigued with slow electron reflection. This doubles itself, and a mysterious light is produced when charged in slow motion. One can follow medium disappear and appear anew. Visually, the painting must emit neutron radiations at highest frequencies to be absorbed at random and give energy to the onlooker. I see imaginary planets traveling through a transparent medium of equations. They are invisible when exceeding speed of light. Their reflections appear as luminous. Perhaps also they are radar pulse paintings. Continuous sharp outbursts of energy keep them in motion. Individual deflected echoes are detected by a lens turning on its axis. Intervals between transmitted pulses are the direction of light. So this was written in 1964.
Coincidentally, the year that I was born. It's the year that I was born. But actually, it's very interesting. This idea of the time travel, the distance and memory that is involved in sort of reading this. But it does also remind me that I did want to ask about the piece downstairs. Way out is way in. People have seen Lillian's poem drum downstairs, and you've been making poem drums and poem machines since since 1960.
62.
62. And you were exhibiting some of those early poem machines in the Librairie Anglaise in Paris.
Yeah.
At the same time as Burroughs and Geisen was showing some...
Yes, I mean, actually, Brian was showing his paintings with words on them, and I think the words came from William's texts. So, and they were literally across the street in the Galerie Stadler, and I was in a little bookshop in the basement. It was my first show, and one day I came in and Guy Froget, who owned the shop, said, oh, Burroughs has been here looking for you, Lillian. You should go and see him. And I had met him before. Actually, I'd met him in New York at the White Horse Tavern with Iris Owens, who wrote all the pornographic books for Gerodias under the name of Harriet Daimler. They're very, very well-known books, actually. And she was always complaining that she never made any money out of it, and now they were so expensive. She didn't get it. They were completely pirated, so she never made anything, which was terrible. And she introduced me, actually, to William Burroughs. So I went, of course, and I went to the Beat Hotel and knocked on the door and said, come in, and we had this very long, maybe 3 or 4 hour conversation, in which I was really mainly a listener, but during it he did say to me that he'd seen the work, he liked moving pieces, he wanted to make his work move too, and he didn't actually say, make my work move, which Nazmi Noor had said to me, but I could sense that that was what he wanted, and it took me, I can't count, so I don't know how many years, but it took me a long time to actually do it. And I won't go into the reasons. There are reasons, but I won't go into them. A few years ago, Stephen, my partner, who had a factory in Walthamstow, he showed me these wonderful drums, which look very much like oil drums, battered black drums, big drums, and they were actually solvent drums. And I said, "Ooh, I'd like to make something with those." And so he brought over 3 or 4 drums to my studio, and I thought about them, and I thought, well, maybe it's time that I actually did do a piece with Burroughs's writing, and maybe I should quickly add that this actually came about because David Allen Meller wrote a text for a retrospective show I had in Warwick, the gallery there, Mead Gallery, and he read some of my diaries, and he came across a note from, I think, 63, where I said, met Burroughs at Big Hotel, and he wants me to make some work, to put his words on my poem machines, something like that, I'm not quoting, and I've completely forgotten about it, and so this sort of made me rethink this and think, well, I should try to do something. So I started rereading. Rereading Naked Lunch, rereading Wild Boys, various books. I must have read 3 or 4. And I knew, because when I work with poem machines, I only want a few words. So it's always difficult, to take words out of context. And I felt with William Burroughs it was actually more difficult than, let's say, Nasli Noor, Sigrid Bayless, people like that, who've given me specific words to use. But I found in the context of an extremely erotic passage, I found 5 words that were quite neutral, really, but also quite, in a way, they were almost saying something very universal, but I didn't really know what, which I liked. And that was way out is way in, as opposed to way in is way out, which would be a bit obvious. Then way out is way in, which I like. And it really is the way out is the way in, but I had to cut out those that don't work on my poem drums.
It's great. It's a great piece of work. I think we've got time for a quick question, and then we're doing. Lillian's going to do another reading from Crossing Map, aren't you, in a moment?
Yes.
And then I'm going to read a piece. But this idea of collaboration again is an interesting one. The collaborations you do with the poem machines with Sinclair Bayliss, and this kind of collaboration across 50 years with from a conversation with Burroughs, which I think the result of that is richer as a result of the tension that
Time which doesn't exist. That's my last word.
Exactly.
Time does not exist. It doesn't actually. It is a completely human fabrication. There's only change and frequency.
So we can take a question from the floor, but I should say that after the next readings, we can go downstairs, have wine, continue the conversation in the bar downstairs. That's really important, so we can carry on talking. But anyone with a question coming out of the conversation?
Well, Tony, I was just going to say, because I read your book there, it starts off very much as though it were true-to-life cops.
Yeah.
Towards the end, it's very much fantasy and science fiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, why did he go that way?
Okay, I was. I don't know. Maybe I don't know how other novelists work. It doesn't take much to kind of set me off, And the stuff that I was talking about already had me almost there. But then it's just a really crude pun on the word alienation. So these alienated coppers in their van are, of course, abducted by aliens. So the bulk of the novel takes place in space. With these coppers being subjected to various atrocities themselves. Before they return to Earth and wreak havoc, or return to normal duty, as it's called. Lillian, I think we should move into the next.
Well, what I'm going to read.
Oh, we need our thing.
What I'm going to read now. Most of it will be, I'm going to read 3 excerpts from Time Zone, which basically with the first drafts of the Crossing Map, and were as I said earlier, science fiction, a sort of science fiction fantasy, but that became more and more infected with my own life. But as these things are very long, I think I've chosen three sections that actually give you more of the science fiction side than the autobiographical side. When it was first invented, it was called the rainbow radiation belt, but now it's just the belt. It is such a common part of our lives that we don't notice it. It has almost become a part of our body. It's alive as you thought it was. Energy is alive. Energy is life, if you like. And light is a form of energy. Excuse me. In the belt, we use electromagnetic frequencies from slow infrared as a thermal booster when we need extra body warmth through the whole visible spectrum. Turning one of those dials, you can control the temperature, and the other should tune the color frequencies. But the color aura often reacts to your body and its moods, so that sometimes it can prove difficult to control unless you control yourself. We don't mind if it changes color as we change mood, but if you do, try turning the dial. Go ahead, tune it. It will also affect the intensity. I gladly turned the dial he'd indicated and noticed that I was able to regulate the aura, allowing parts of my body to show or letting it hide me completely. Once I started, I couldn't stop, playing with it, changing myself blue, violet, yellow, green, orange, intensifying the colors until I shone like a star, blinding myself with my own radiance, and then dimming them to a faint glow, turning the dial all the way, nude for an instant, and then flipping it back, covering my face, becoming a ball of light. How does it work? It's fed by a chemical battery on stored solar energy. It can last for a lifetime. The visible frequencies of color are broken down and concentrated by lenses and fine prisms. Do you really use glass prisms to reflect the light? I asked, thinking fondly of the sculptures which I had made with prisms, which seemed almost childish compared to the belt. No, we don't use glass. Long-sided diamonds. We call them heavy facets because it's the exact faceting of the stones which creates the brilliant radiance that the belt emits. Diamonds for clothing. Diamonds to capture and refract light. Diamonds for their hardness, to be used where softer stones and metals wear. Otherwise, they have no value for us, as they once did for you. And gold? I asked immediately, now curious about their value system. Used only in the labs, sparingly. You might as well know right away that we no longer have a monetary system. Our society is essentially different from yours. What happened? Do you have a welfare state, a kind of communist utopia where no one needs money and property has become communal? Azir laughed and smoothed back his fine fuzz of hair. Even his yellow aura seemed to twinkle. Oh, Nail, the pattern has completely altered. Those words and concepts of your time no longer apply to ours. There is no state, no government, communist or otherwise. It needed more than a switch of social structure to achieve our present way of life. Human beings have radically changed. You could say they have evolved, or you might say that the whole human species has shifted genetically, mutated. So this comes from another chapter. And it's basically about my transformation to become like these very strange people who are almost non-human. My double shadow, reflection of me breathing with a life unique to itself, detached, disquieting animosity, billowing flickerings of pale flecks of the non-existent wall of a dark room, murmuring inquietude of the secret vitality of inert things, shadows coming into their own, taking what is theirs, what always has been, comparing their life to mine in whispers of discontent. Spaces leading nowhere, one-dimensional echo, murmurs I catch through my eyes, seeing what shadows speak, hearing the swirling patterns through two pinpoint pupils shut down to exclude their life, if not my own. If I allow them the upper hand, there's no telling. Anywhere the line of sight fragments and pulverized beyond the smallest point, it twists through to zero, the dimension of zero, where a body flattened by intolerable pressures involutes, emptying into itself, condensing until all motion stops. absolute immobility. The giant spreads an arm and worlds shatter. A slight finger quiver induces free fall. Can't allow it to happen, the total crystallization of all parts and segments. Azir called it an emotional burn. He had explained, prepared, and instructed me what I was to do, how to react, how he would be there to help, to pull, to guide me, and it seemed simple enough, as simple as melting. Sit in a furnace and melt without burning. When the heat is high enough, it can be performed. Not melting, but vaporization. Instant nothingness. All I had to do was watch the patterns, floating red and yellow, almost motionless, slightly quivering on the opposite wall. In the same small room where I had some days ago watched those colors pull my body into light, vanishing momentarily and painlessly. Sounds easy, laughing nervously, but how can watching reflections provoke, postponing with questions the waiting shadows? Don't worry about that, just keep your eyes on the wall. I sat next to Azir, who had all but disappeared into himself, and for a while I watched the reflections, mute quivering, but saw nothing particular. Nothing would happen. Sitting there was a waste of time. I stood up, disregarding his instructions, and began to pace the room. I felt a compulsion to walk, to move my body through the silent space, keep it moving. Keep it alive, feel myself distinct from the room, the white and silent walls. Low energy reflections, dull red like a dying star stretched out, slithering around the curve in the oval room to join their source. Laughable my efforts to evade them, and walking was meaningless. The room was an endless circle, squashed at its poles, and by a ridiculous effort of will I had sealed the only exit. I walked on my legs as on wooden stilts. The mechanism refused to unwind. The machine dreaded switch off, secure only in its own pre-recorded rhythm. He had been explicit concerning the history of mental structures. Mind's internal structure mirrors, repeating all possible and impossible combinations. Gases, liquids, solids, delicate crystals of blue vein quartz, rubies, graphite, diamonds, metals soft as copper, heavy uranium, toxic plutonium, the newborn gas mines. Who could tell what visions they might have before they were sucked out into the world of forms, definitions, beginnings, attachments? Forced to form, gases become liquids, liquids solids. Time and pressure determine structure. Glass people, brittle ones, don't push too hard, don't strain them, else they break and splinter. Transparent glass girl, see-through man, gel molten glass mines lumped into solid mass. No crystals, no complex threads of force connecting. Compression makes solid even the thinnest air, the lightest, most delicate gas. No time to let seed grow, no time for seeds or root networks. Glass people, stiff convictions, fixed trajectory, impregnable, repeat. Heat them and they spit fire and flood the world with molten mind. Diamond minds of multiple facets reflecting internally at the speed of light. Ideas crisscrossing, contradicting, slipping through the cracks and faults, interstices of perishable acuteness. Sharp, hard, but never faultless, innumerable reticules spun in a massive web, interconnected by immutable bonds. Luckier metal minds, loose and lucky, gliding from world to world, in and out from pain to pleasure. Fishmen ride the currents, crests and shallows. Make diamond to metal to survive, become composite, toughened outer shell, protecting the liquid core. But even this optimum structure couldn't breathe. Not enough, not open enough. What was I? A mixture, perhaps a kind of composite. A bit of this and a bit of that. There was an element of complex crystal there, but elasticity as well. And at times, fractional moments, a point of a second, gases would take control, outblowing cracks, pinholes, through which distance entered, but the seals renewed themselves, the skin hardened, the structure dominated, and although allowing fluctuations, it was always there. Now this excerpt comes from the 9th chapter, again, time zone. And Azir was laughing. He jumped once or twice, using the layer of air which held us above the floor as a trampoline, and then did a somersault midair, coming down softly in a shower of light. I watched a microcomet with the head of a man, a human play the game of fire in the sky, geishas and arabesques. It came like a blue ball of nothing, lightly down beside me, rivulets of light folding. Azir sat before me. You are of us. Could he really mean? Bright orange wisps of light rose upward, flowing through the wiry mesh of his hair. Each hair was an orange line, coiled and swaying, delicately trembling, spirals crossing, meshing tendrils of electric light. Electric, because they reminded me of oscilloscopes. Thousands of luminous traces seen on the tube of an electroencephalograph, which has been hooked up to countless brains and is silently putting down their signals in code. The line of light. His hair was an image of that machine. His hair combined with the belt, the light cloud trickling up in the finest of lines, a delicate tracery of feathery threads spreading through his hair, defining each hair as a thread of light, orange at this moment, but another time perhaps blue or red or green, was functioning in a very similar way to the machine we had, the one which measured the electrical pulses of the brain. It wasn't actually functioning. Perhaps it was miming or even talking and saying that each line was another mind to which his was linked. A mind not only of thoughts, but of feelings and sensations, a neural system. And he was linked to countless thousands, or so the image told me, backing up his words perhaps, to tell me I was one of those lines. Joined the forest of light. What did they use encephalographs for? To diagnose epilepsy or study the electrical frequencies of the brain? Its output in gamma waves, or beta, or alpha for that matter, the alpha and beta, or ABC of what lay stored therein. Even that machine could have told them more. Why had they never used it to develop the output, to strengthen those strands, those interconnected beads of energy, to link one man to another, to interconnect people? After all, light was made of particles and not only waves. And light, alias electromagnetic waves, were the same pulses which were interpreted as information about the functioning of the brain. The output was electromagnetic. The field could be strengthened. Humans had been miserable creatures, orientated towards use. What they couldn't use ceased to exist. Never had, in fact, as far as they were concerned, or else they thought that one day they would use it, that is, if they couldn't deny its existence. Just remember for how long the stars were thought of as a fitting panoply for God's earth, the planet of Superman. The moon and the stars were decoration, and the sun a faithful servant. Wasn't Earth the center of the universe? And Earth served man. We were gods, or at least in his image. And I should say they, since I was woman. The users. Why should they have bothered to investigate in that direction? It wouldn't have interested them. What use could you make of interlinked humans? How could they profit from research of that kind? The kind that would try to strengthen those pulses, lengthen them, and make them stretch further. What would that do except make men and women feel like brothers? Right, so there's one more.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah, correct.
just one short
Yeah,
more.
brilliant.
Which is basically the last, it's called the last song of the postlude from Crossing Map. And it sort of sums things up. The Energy Addict. Man, the energy addict, wanted to eat the universe, knowing there was more, and hoping to outdo time. We are man and woman, part of our kind, and earth, our garden, our desert, our world. We shall be masters, we shall control, we shall absorb and multiply. We shall spread over space and time. We shall endure. And that hope of his, engendered by fear, made it so that the more he absorbed, the less he released, perverting the flow, channeling it in fixed patterns, narrowing it down to a slow beat, cooling it still and solid in his urge to endure, in his need for sameness, in his wanting to keep what he received, in his fear of change. Had he taken pain and pleasure as the king? Had he received all that came to him and allowed all the many changes to move within him, allowed for interchange, exchange, transfer, and release of the transform? The knot would flow, and flesh would flash toward man, to God, or dog to stone, or air to light. Man, the energy addict, wanted to eat the universe, knowing there was more, and hoping to outdo time.
You can see why we wanted to kind of steer the event around experiencing the literature rather than talking about it, or not just talking about it, but hearing the stuff. And it's great to actually see a typewritten page. Everyone remembers what a typewritten page looks like. That's what it looks like.
I should have brought the one that had the red capitals.
Oh, you should have done. But I'm sort of, I suppose, for this, the last piece I'm going to read, it's called a Porky Prime Cut. And this is picking up on a couple of threads that emerged in the conversation around time and distance, and also around collaboration. This is a piece that I'm going to be performing with Mr. Richard Norris up here. Richard Norris of the Grid, who with Genesis, who's performing in a week or so, made the first Acid House records in the UK. Jack the Tab, of course. And Richard and I have we performed this piece at Glastonbury a couple of years ago, and it's great to have the opportunity to to perform it again here in this context. And you'll see why. You'll see why we're doing this. This is, hang on, just a quick drink before it starts, because once it starts, I can't get off. Okay, Richard. I avoided the common for a few weeks and repaired my headphones with masking tape, but as the weather gradually got warmer, we started going there again on the way home. We, being me, Gaz and Dom, and self-confessed token girl, Days. Dom was into reciting routines from the Arena documentary on writer William S. Burroughs that someone in the college library had videoed when it was on telly a couple of months earlier, and which we must have seen a dozen times, not including the rewinding of favourite sequences, so knew those routines inside out, in the way that school friends with older brothers knew Monty Python. Burroughs is funnier.
Listen to my last word.
Dom would say, imitating that voice. If you haven't seen the film, it's well worth checking out and easier to get hold of these days, of course, thanks to the brilliant Boo Web. At the time, it was a revelation. I'd never heard of Allen Ginsberg up to that point. Francis Bacon, yeah, of course, and not least because part of the entrance exam for Foundation was to copy an old master in the style of a then contemporary artist, and lacking both imagination and knowledge, I'd done the Mona Lisa in the style of Bacon. Christ, no wonder I nearly didn't get in. There's a very brief interview fragment with Patti Smith near the beginning of the film. She's picking up her clarinet reed while describing Burroughs as being up there with the Pope. And that made me prick up my ears, because I've been into her stuff ever since one of our lodgers was given horses as a birthday present the week it came out. What blew me away, even more than the record itself, was driving home in my father's Bedford van one day, maybe later that year or early '76, and hearing Wilson Pickett's storming version of Land of 1,000 Dances on the radio. I'm not joking when I say it was like a light went on in my head. It was electrifying. So that's what she did. This was the same common, Turbury, if you know it, between Wallisdown Road and West Howe, where Dom and I, at least, who both grew up in West Howe and went to the same schools all the way through, would have gone to play war when we were kids, or football. In the meantime, several new generations have dropped their sweet wrappers under the same bushes that we had years before, and so on. Found the mysteriously discarded pornography, learned to navigate the crisscrossing main paths, as well as what with local pride we'd used to call the smuggler's tracks, because we thought that only we knew about them. In reality, they were well trodden, but still impenetrable enough to anyone who cared enough about their clothes not to get down on all fours and crawl beneath the hawthorn to reach the dusty floored and branch-vaulted tunnels beyond, which was the whole point. The goalposts, where we'd played those endlessly rotating games of Wembley or 3 and in, were still there, chalked and re-chalked onto the high, pink brick wall for someone else to play against. They're probably still there now. I can remember where the old tip was down by the plantation, even though it had been covered over even by then, and is now completely overgrown with elder. When I was really young, my cousin and I would go down there and dig for the old Victorian bottles that were lined up along my bedroom windowsill so the brown, blue and green glass could catch the light. It's funny, the way that you begin to stake out a personality with things, like days with her pre-Raphaelite posters and the Susie merchandising she'd got from Armadillo, or by what you listened to. Armadillo was a great shop, and for a couple of years I had a nice little number handing out flyers for them every Saturday lunchtime, either for the shop or for Mick's short-lived club, Midnight Express. I'd given up by the time we were doing foundation because I had a cleaning job at the college that the office kindly set me up with as a way of paying what I suppose would have been some kind of tuition fees or registration fees, and which from memory would have been about 50 quid, but might as well have been 500. They deducted £5 a week from my wages. I couldn't have done the course otherwise. I'd enjoyed that old Saturday job though, collecting a carrier bag of flyers from Mick or Eddie or whoever was on that Saturday, and then making my way down to the Triangle, a cup of tea in a double O egg, and from there towards the seafront, or wherever the mood took me, which was generally to places where I thought I'd be most likely to see people I knew. Hardly work at all. It was easy enough to get rid of the flyers because there was a massive music scene in Bournemouth at that time. We four wannabe art students had grown up steeped in this kind of heavily nuanced musical encyclopedia of punk, punky reggae, new wave, new romantic, soul, industrial, proto-goth, you name it, but felt happily unaffiliated. Too young or slow to have seen the Clash at the Chelsea Village, let alone Bowie, but old enough to be bored of hearing about the glory days from Phil, who doled out free local musical history with his merchandise. By the time the comment re-entered our consciousnesses, or speaking for myself anyway, it was as the shortcut that I took on my way to stark, sweeping sculpture studio floors at 7 in the morning. If I wasn't listening to you boys, Natty Rebel on the Walkman, I'd be singing it. Said I'm a living man and I've got a lot of work to do. Later in the day, it would be the place that we'd go to hang out and smoke or drink, things we couldn't easily do at home. It was the same, but a bit different. Physically smaller than my memory of it, but somehow psychically vast. There were always new worlds to be explored, conjured from whatever scraps we could find. A new 7-inch single maybe that would be played later, but in the meantime was pored over for clues. Music was how I found out about books. So if Laurie Anderson recommended Gravity's Rainbow or Gertrude Stein, I'd go away and read them. Scritty told us about Derrida. Patti Smith led to Rambo, Barrett to Joyce. And it would have been Throbbing Gristle that led us to Burroughs. And around then, one of us would have had a paperback of Cities of the Red Night, or a William Burroughs reader in their bag. His older stuff wasn't really available except at the library or in these strange 1970s paperback editions on pulp science fiction imprints, which I tracked down. I've still got the Panther paperback of Nova Express. If it was sunny, then Daisy's straw hat and a bottle of cheap white wine, or Don announcing that he wanted to smoke some hashish, please, was enough to evoke some kind of brideshead style idyll. Little things, a sketchbook and some Conte crayons. Jumble sale booty like Daisy's Super 8 camera, or her old green cloth bound copy of the Observer's Book of British Wildflowers. Anything like that would be sufficient to complete the momentary assemblage of a fantasy bohemia that slowly became real life. It was, I suppose, the kind of earnest freedom that you feel you are carving out for yourself at that age. A golden moment seems to be there for the taking and which lasts as long as your luck holds. There were new names on that wall over the back of Downey Close too by then. Chalked or painted around the goalposts like a ghost legion. Nothing sophisticated, no tagging as such. It was too early for that, or spray work. Just crudely daubed letters done with what looks like leftover house paint. Names like The Trouble Gang, or imaginatively Chalky. That rang a bell. Aye, said Gaz. Your friend. It was Dom who'd been particularly incensed when I told them what happened in the new year as I was walking across the common on the way back from a morning at college, daydreaming, listening to something heavy and hypnotic, like the gospel comes to New Guinea on my Walkman. I barely noticed a couple of blokes walking the other way, but after they passed, one of them had turned and hit me over the back of the head with what could have been a bottle, because afterwards I found one on the ground next to me. All I knew about it was that suddenly I had dirt in my mouth, and I was looking at the imprint of a pony's hoof in the gravel a couple of inches from my face. I heard a voice say, "Leave him, Chalk. I don't think he's a proper skin." When they'd gone, I picked myself up slowly and wiped the dirt from my face, gingerly feeling through my hair for the bump, and then looking around for my headphones. After that, Chalky became our code name for every soul boy whose gaze we avoided before never returning to whichever pub it was we were leaving in a hurry. "Live in Chalk," we'd say, incorporating the threat of violence into our own satirical routines. If there was more than one of them in their thin collared shirts and their burgundy pegs, we'd call them the Trouble Gang, after the graffiti by the goalposts. These were names that served for anyone who might beat you up because they didn't like the way you looked or because they could tell that you weren't into George Benson. Self-appointed truth teachers on their manky bikes. Subtle subcultural differences magnified further by which side of whichever main road you lived on, what kind of punk you were, Hampshire versus Dorset, Bournemouth versus Poole. Local differences like that were all quite close to the surface looking back, although actually there was much more crossover than that makes it sound like. But I'll happily dispel one particular myth of the ultimate crossover, though, and I can be absolutely 100% about this because I was there. What happened was that when we were coming back late one night, Dom had nicked a can of retouching spray from his dad's garage. And on that wall, over by Downey Close Way, by the goalposts, he sprayed up a massive capital T and a capital G with a lightning bolt down the middle. TG as in throbbing gristle. We were practically doubled over with glee and bursting with the noisy effort of not laughing, but we got away with it. Even more hilarious was that when we next went that way, a week or so later, someone with a different coloured paint had added letters vertically under the T and the G. So it spelt Trouble Gang. Dom is obviously not around to confirm this, very sadly, but Gaz would back me up that he swore us to secrecy, and like I say, I'm absolutely 100% that he had known this would happen, and that was why he'd done it. It was part of the plan. And anyone who remembers Dom will not be surprised when I say this, or that he did not leave it there. That wasn't Dom's style. Unfortunately, he didn't really go for half measures. A few days later, and thinking about it now, it mustn't have taken him that long just to prepare everything. He went back more properly equipped and did a whole TG graphic. The black square, red bar across the middle, white flash down the centre. He put a smaller TG in bold white capitals at the 5 o'clock position. He was a great artist, Dom, and a perfectionist. So he made a really good job of it, painting the whole square white first, the way any artist would do, to give himself a good ground to work on, for even cover, and to get perfect whites in the finished piece. He used stencils, and got that slightly off-register look, which made it really stand out. And then he took a photograph of the finished article, which he gave me the next day, and I've still got somewhere. I don't know who they thought was doing this, but one of their own, evidently, because during the weeks that followed, as spring turned to summer, the Trouble Gang's new graphic identity really caught on, and variations on that black and red square, the lightning flash, the T and the G started appearing around the place, further afield than just that particular wall over Turbury. You'd see homemade stickers on bus stops or lamp posts, that kind of thing. Trouble Gang, the lightning flash. Ah, aye aye, Gaz would say. One thing with the Soul Weekender scene that was really taking off around then was that particular groups would really dress the part and maybe all go for a similar look. Like, all have bleached jeans and white t-shirts. Most of the white guys had wedges, though some went for a button-down, preppy look with more of a grown-out suede head type of thing. Some of the bigger Soul Boy crews had names, like One Way, who I think were from Farnham, but I could be wrong. The Funk Master Generals was another. They had logos and everything. The Soulful Street Rhythm Dancers had one that was copied from the London Underground. Magnum Force all wore matching dark jeans with navy blue t-shirts that said their name across the top above a shield that looked a bit like the MG sports car badge. It wasn't my scene. I just knew all of this because, like I said, I used to give out flyers for a record shop. So I'd bump into these guys and they were really into their music like we all were. So of course I'd give them a flyer. You've probably already guessed that this type of crew identity was what the Trouble Gang aspired to. So Dom's little TG joke fell on ground that was a bit more fertile than Turbury Common. It's no surprise what the Trouble Gang had printed on their t-shirts. It even crossed my mind that it might have been Dom that actually made the shirts. But looking at it now, I wouldn't put it past him. It would have been easy enough to make some screens up in the print room, and he went to college early enough. He'd be there at 8 every morning, hanging around and waiting for us student cleaners to finish. You had to if you wanted decent time on the equipment. It was a habit I picked up too, and I'm still an early riser as a result. Dom had been into printing even at school, and at one point he had practically got a cottage industry going in the production of Red Brigade t-shirts in the art room. And of course he'd have met the Trouble Gang through his sister Rach, who was maybe a year younger but a bit more mainstream in her mates and her taste in music. So quite into the soul scene. I vaguely recall that at one point she was either going out with one of the Trouble Gang or one of them fancied her or something. God, I'm so stupid, of course it was him. Dom, you sly bastard. Looking at it now, aside from the joke of it, the reversal, what he was kind of saying, I think, was, okay, if you are going to beat up my mate because of how he looks, then I am going to make you want to look like him. After foundation, we all went our separate ways. Dave to Farnham, Dom to what was still then called the Central School, Gaz to Winchester, me to Leeds, and pretty much lost touch until Gaz tracked me down via my mum with the bad news about Dom. Dave, I've no idea, but Gaz and me are now Facebook friends. But honestly, that is genuinely the complete genesis of the myth, which I still see repeated even now. And which if you were reading this, you have probably heard too in the histories of Acid House, that there were Bournemouth soul boys who were so hardcore that they were into TG. The myth was unshakably reinforced by a couple of gurning pissheads with wedges who appeared in a Bournemouth funk scene photograph that was published in the NME, illustrating what would most likely have been a sarcastic review of some Light of the World single, and who were wearing what to anybody else would have looked like Throbbing Gristle Second Annual Report t-shirts. This image got cited so many times by hardcore Psychic TV fans and photocopied so often that I think the myth sort of came true. There were even t-shirts of that. Of course there were. I've had conversations with people about the beginnings of the UK rave scene who have repeated this to me in all seriousness, and then taken their copies of the 1983 Mute re-release of Throbbing Gristle 20 jazz funk greats off the shelf, and by way of further, final, incontrovertible proof, they solemnly slide the record out of its inner sleeve to show me the message from George Peckham, also known as Porky, that is etched into the vinyl between the label and the lead-out groove of side 1. Into funk first. And Sarah doing a fantastic job. Please join us downstairs for a drink and to continue the conversation. Thank you.